It's pretty obvious that 𝗧𝗛 has an array of mental problems. Any rendition of Ice King too. The Winter King is no exception. Let me explain.
The Big Dipper.
Throughout episode 6 of Fionna and Cake, we come to learn more about the Winter King, a character who claims that through pure belief and sheer will, he's managed to control the effects of the crown, making the 𝗧𝗛 we know feel like a loser. Even though he appears free-spirited and maintains a happy-go-lucky attitude, I think his appearance in the show represents something much deeper. This universe's 𝗧𝗛 has built a kingdom where everyone is happy. There's never any complaints about him or his citizens, which is a stark contrast to Ice King from 𝗚𝗚. This rendition of the Ice King is quite the charmer, even making Fionna show signs of affection towards him. But when looking beneath the surface, the Winter King's happiness is nothing more than a thin veneer of imagination. Later on in the episode, we come to learn that this entire kingdom was built on lies. More importantly, it was built on an illusion. See, the Winter King was never able to control the power of the crown. Instead, he projected its effects onto Princess Bubblegum. As dark as that seems, it presents a problem with 𝗧𝗛. So far, we've seen how every version of the Ice King can never be mentally stable. It's merely impossible. Ice King was obsessed over princesses. He was a nut job and pretty much embodied mental illness. The Winter King is similar, except this time it's a parallel to Ice King. See, the Winter King wasn't living in reality. He essentially was stuck in a dream that never ends. And he did whatever it took in order not to wake up. Ethically and morally speaking, you can tell that only a mental case would do this. When I finished the episode, I was left wondering if I would do it too. Let's say I was 𝗧𝗛. Would I have projected the side effects of the crown in order to live my life normally? That's a discussion for another time. But even saying that out loud just feels wrong. Showing just how disturbed 𝗧𝗛 is, I think the Ice King we know had two main mental disorders: neurodevelopmental disorders as well as schizophrenia. Long story short, the first encompasses behavior changes as well as intellectual development. So for the latter, think of things such as ADHD and autism. Schizophrenia relates to things such as disorganized thinking, hallucinations, and extreme agitation. That middle one is important. The Winter King's entire life is a hallucination to an extent. Something that interests me about the Winter King is his very subtle delusions of grandeur. Note that I use the word subtle. He doesn't go walking around swinging his dick acting like he's a big shot, but he knows it. The only reason I infer this is because of two things. From how he interacted with 𝗧𝗛 during the song scene. He didn't belittle him, but his song suggested his superiority. It is almost as though he was showing 𝗧𝗛 that he's simply just better. And two, I don't see a lot of people talk about this, but do you genuinely think that he was going to be able to make another crown for 𝗧𝗛? It's unfortunate that the crown cloning equipment was destroyed, but something tells me that it wasn't going to work either way. The Winter King strikes me as a character who feels entitled. Not through his demeanor, not because of his words, but the act of essentially invading another kingdom, regarding its ruler as beneath you and transferring your plight onto them. It's quite vile to say the least. I know it seems cliche, but it's rather true. You know how they say that people who appear to be nice and put together tend to be the most disturbing of them all. It's fair to say his personality is the perfect talking point regarding this. He speaks in a well-spoken manner, completely opposite to the fashion in which Ice King would speak. He'd often burst into fits of rage. The Winter King's body language is inviting and his face is rather gentle. These are traits of some narcissists. Which brings me to the next point. 3 traits that are very common among them are the following: sense self of importance, lack of empathy, and obsession with power, beauty, or success. The first two go hand in hand with the whole PB situation. More importantly, he lacked any empathy when talking about Betty. He even refers to her as the dead one and laughs it off as though she meant nothing to him, as though she wasn't even a person. The last one, although not exactly touched on, you can infer for yourself that the Winter King looks like a person who spends too much time pampering himself. Look, I don't hate the Winter King. Just like 𝗧𝗛, I pity him. I'm not surprised the Winter King is the way he is. His kingdom is pretty lonely. Now imagine being in isolation for all those years. You're bound to become the way he is. The problem is, it's hard for anyone to really see what's wrong with the Winter King. See, the difference between him and Ice King is that with the Ice King, the characteristics and traits of mental illness are always evident 24/7. Plus, it doesn't help either that this dude is pretty much cooped up in his kingdom since he believes it's a utopia. But as the author of All the Bright Places famously said, It's my experience that people are a lot more sympathetic if they can see you hurting, and for the millionth time in my life I wish for measles or smallpox or some other easily understood disease just to make it easier on me and also on them. And I think this pretty much embodies Simon.